On a cool morning, 14-year-old Marcus set out on what he thought was another ordinary day. A walk to school along well-worn streets lined with familiar storefronts. But fate had something else in store. Without warning, Marcus found himself in the grip of a system that had already decided his story. The shock of being cuffed and hauled away for a crime he didn't commit could have broken him. Instead, in a courtroom filled with hardened assumptions, he summoned a quiet courage that would upend the very case built against him. With each measured step toward the stand, Marcus transformed his fear into determination. His eyes, steady and unyielding, met those of the jury as he challenged the evidence, and the very credibility of those who claimed to protect the law. This was more than just a fight for his freedom. It was a stand against a system quick to label, a moment where one young voice demanded to be heard. Welcome to Acts of Kindness Stories, where we bring you real-life tales of resilience and truth. Marcus's journey is a reminder that even when the odds are stacked against you, the power of one honest heart can spark change and inspire hope for many. Marcus's day took a dramatic turn as he strolled down his familiar route to school. The cracked sidewalks, modest storefronts, and the early morning light were constants in his world, until a piercing wail of sirens shattered the routine. As Marcus neared a small hardware store, flashing red and blue lights filled his vision. Within moments, a stern voice commanded, "Hands where I can see them," before a uniformed officer surged toward him. In an instant, Marcus's heart pounded as a strong hand gripped his wrist, twisting it sharply behind his back. The officer's grip was forceful and unyielding, and without a chance to explain himself, Marcus found his arms locked in metal restraints that bit into his skin. The officer, Sergeant Monroe, a name known in the neighborhood for his heavy-handed approach, barked into his radio announcing, "Got him." Confusion and disbelief swirled through Marcus's mind. Just moments before, he had been simply walking to school. Now he was being dragged away, his protests drowned out by the harsh cadence of authority. He repeatedly insisted, "I didn't do anything," but his words were met with a dismissive scoff. The description provided over the radio, a young boy in a dark hoodie and sneakers, was a rough outline that, in the chaos, had been mistaken for him. Yet, Marcus knew in his heart he was not the criminal they sought. Inside the police vehicle, the atmosphere was oppressive. The close quarters reeked of sweat and worn leather, and every jolt of the ride sent fresh waves of pain through his restrained wrists. The silence was punctuated only by the rhythmic hum of the engine and his shallow breathing. Arriving at the station, he was swiftly processed, a process that stripped away not only his freedom but also his dignity. They took his name, his fingerprints, and even noted the scuff marks on his sneakers, as if meticulously cataloging a crime he never committed. Before long, Marcus was ushered into a cold, fluorescent-lit interrogation room. The sterile environment did nothing to calm his racing heart or quell the overwhelming sense of injustice. The first visitor was a weary-looking public defender, Mr. Ellis, who barely glanced at Marcus before launching into an explanation of the plea deal on offer. "If you plead guilty, you might avoid a trial, get probation and community service," he murmured, as if reciting a rehearsed script. Marcus's mind reeled at the prospect of admitting guilt to a crime he knew he did not commit, a decision that would mark him for life. His mother, Janice, arrived moments later, her eyes blazing with a mix of fury and heartache as she demanded answers from Sergeant Monroe. "Where is his lawyer? What is he being charged with?" she demanded, her voice unwavering in its resolve. Sergeant Monroe stood his ground, insisting that surveillance footage had placed Marcus at the scene of a break-in, where tools were stolen and property damaged. His claim rested on grainy video evidence and a set of physical characteristics, a dark hoodie, sneakers, and a description that seemed to fit Marcus's appearance. But as Marcus listened, a deep-seated unease began to build inside him. He knew that the details didn't add up. He had been on his usual route to school, and there was no reason for him to be near that hardware store at the time of the incident. That night, as Marcus lay awake in his small room, the reality of his situation settled in like a heavy fog. The injustice of it all, being thrust into a legal battle for a crime he had not committed, left him restless and determined. He resolved that if no one else would stand up for him, he would do it himself. The very next morning, fueled by a mixture of fear and fierce resolve, Marcus skipped lunch and made his way to the local public library. In the quiet refuge of the library's legal section, surrounded by stacks of outdated textbooks and legal references, he began to educate himself about criminal procedure. Page by page, he absorbed the principles of burden of proof and the necessity for evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Each legal term and case study resonated with him, slowly building a foundation for the argument he would one day present in court. While poring over a hefty volume titled Criminal Procedure, Marcus's attention was drawn to the significance of chain of evidence and the critical role of eyewitness credibility. He realized that a single misstep in the handling of evidence could dismantle an entire case. As he flipped through the pages, one glaring detail caught his eye: the measurement marker embedded in the store's security footage. According to the system, the suspect in the video was recorded as standing 5 feet 9 inches tall. Marcus, who was only 5 feet 4 inches, recognized immediately that this discrepancy was his most potent weapon in proving his innocence. Before long, Marcus was approached by Mr. Carter, the kindly librarian known for his thoughtful demeanor and a deep understanding of local history. Mr. Carter, noticing the determined stack of legal books and frantic note-taking, asked, "What are you working on, Marcus?" With a mix of hesitation and resolve, Marcus explained the entire ordeal: the unwarranted arrest, the plea deal being pushed onto him, and his growing conviction that the evidence did not add up. Mr. Carter listened intently, nodding as Marcus detailed his discovery about the height marker. "You've got an important point there," Mr. Carter said quietly. "But remember, courtroom battles aren't fought solely on facts. It's also about how you present those facts." He offered to spend the next hour discussing courtroom strategies, teaching Marcus about the subtle art of cross-examination and how to cast reasonable doubt in the minds of jurors. Armed with new knowledge and bolstered by Mr. Carter's mentorship, Marcus began to draft his own strategy. He meticulously reviewed every piece of evidence that had been used against him: the security footage, the officer's testimony, and even the details of his own processing at the station. He was particularly struck by the assumption that his physical presence at the scene could be deduced solely from a match in clothing and a vague description. Every detail he uncovered only reinforced his belief that the case was built on circumstantial evidence rather than concrete proof. The courtroom day arrived with an atmosphere thick with tension and expectation. The courtroom, with its worn wooden benches and a subtle scent of aged paper and brewed coffee, felt like a stage where Marcus was about to challenge a predetermined fate. Seated at the defendant's table, his hands trembling yet resolute, Marcus listened as the prosecution laid out its case. Ms. Ramirez, the prosecutor in a sharp navy suit, delivered her opening remarks with an air of unyielding certainty. "The evidence is clear," she stated, emphasizing that Marcus had been seen near the scene of the break-in, and that his description matched that of the suspect. Her words were calculated and forceful, designed to leave no room for doubt. Then came the moment that would change the course of the trial. As Ms. Ramirez confidently referred to the surveillance footage, the screen flickered to life. A shadowy figure, concealed beneath a dark hoodie, moved swiftly past the marked measurement on the wall. Marcus, with a calm yet piercing look, interrupted the flow. "May I ask a question, Your Honor?" he addressed the bench, his voice steady despite the intensity of the moment. The judge, Judge Thompson, nodded, allowing him to proceed. Marcus fixed his gaze on Sergeant Monroe, who was now seated uncomfortably in the courtroom, his face a mask of rigid composure. "Officer, how tall do you record me to be?" he asked directly. Caught off guard, Sergeant Monroe faltered, replying with uncertainty, I don't know exactly. Around 5 feet 4 inches perhaps." Marcus then pointed to the digital readout on the security system displayed behind the prosecution's table. "But the system indicates the suspect is 5 feet 9 inches. His words hung in the air, a simple yet powerful question that exposed a critical flaw in the case. The courtroom fell into a heavy silence as murmurs spread among the jurors and spectators alike. Ms. Ramirez struggled for an explanation, dismissing the discrepancy as an inexact measurement due to the quality of the footage. Yet the damage had been done. Marcus's deliberate challenge forced everyone to reconsider the reliability of the evidence. He continued, "Modern security systems are designed with precise calibration. If the footage shows a suspect significantly taller than my actual height, then the assumption that I was at the scene is fundamentally flawed." His argument was clear and grounded in logic, a stark reminder that the truth cannot be warped by assumptions or convenience. The tension in the room escalated as Marcus's confidence grew. He questioned every detail, every assumption that had been accepted without scrutiny. Were my shoes ever compared to those worn by the suspect at the time of the arrest? He pressed, shifting the focus back to the physical evidence. His inquiry wasn't meant to antagonize but to insist on fairness, a demand for the same standard of evidence that the prosecution claimed to uphold. Sergeant Monroe's silence and the visible strain on his face spoke volumes. Even the most seasoned officers can falter under the weight of undeniable facts. Throughout the trial, Marcus continued to build his case with the precision of someone who had spent countless hours studying the law. He presented a well-organized dossier of discrepancies, witness statements that had been recorded too hastily, evidence collected without proper chain of custody, and most damning of all, the clear mismatch in physical measurements. His calm, measured voice in the courtroom cut through the tension, forcing the jurors to reconsider the initial assumptions that had painted him as guilty. The atmosphere shifted palpably as the trial progressed. What began as a scene where a young boy was pitted against an unyielding system gradually transformed into a battle for truth and justice. Marcus's determination was contagious, and even those in the gallery who had arrived with preconceived notions began to see the human story behind the case, a story of an innocent youth caught in a tide of systemic bias and rushed judgments. Every detail Marcus uncovered was a reminder of how easily evidence can be misconstrued when driven by bias. He recounted the sequence of events from the moment he was pulled aside, through the sterile, emotionless corridors of the police station, and into the harsh reality of a courtroom where his fate was presumed. His narrative was not only a personal defense but also a broader indictment of a system that often relies on convenience rather than incontrovertible proof. With each question he raised and every fact he presented, Marcus reinforced his message. The truth, when scrutinized, can dismantle even the most seemingly solid cases built on circumstantial evidence. In the midst of the courtroom drama, an unexpected revelation came to light. Marcus produced a series of printed disciplinary records of Sergeant Monroe, documents that were publicly available and detailed several previous incidents where the officer's conduct had been called into question. The judge carefully examined these records, and in that moment, the credibility of the prosecution began to crumble. The records painted a picture of an officer whose past behavior cast a long shadow over his current testimony. It was no longer just a matter of a mistaken identity. It was a case where the integrity of those enforcing the law was under serious scrutiny. Marcus's careful accumulation of evidence, his unwavering insistence on precision, and his ability to articulate each point with clarity transformed the courtroom dynamic. The jurors, who had once seemed predisposed to accept the narrative presented by the prosecution, now sat with their expressions thoughtful and uncertain. The energy in the room shifted from one of unchallenged authority to a collective demand for accountability, a call for justice that went far beyond the outcome of this single trial. Throughout this harrowing process, Marcus remained the calm center of a storm that had been brewing long before he ever set foot in that courtroom. His approach was not one of rebellion for its own sake, but a measured and deeply personal quest for truth. Every step he took, every question he raised, was a testament to the power of standing up for oneself, even when the odds seem insurmountable. His methodical dissection of the case demonstrated that real justice is not achieved through coercion or assumptions, but through a relentless commitment to facts and fairness. The courtroom, once dominated by the assertive declarations of the prosecution and the unquestioned authority of law enforcement, was now a space where a young voice demanded thorough and honest examination. Marcus's courage in presenting the evidence and challenging the established narrative not only resonated with those present but also sent a clear message to the broader community. Injustice must be met with persistence, and every individual has the right to a fair evaluation of the truth. As the proceedings continued, every member of the courtroom could sense that this trial was more than a personal vindication for Marcus. It was a turning point that might reshape the way evidence and authority were treated in future cases. The meticulous detail in his arguments, coupled with the undeniable contrast between his physical reality and the suspect profile presented, forced everyone to reconsider the reliability of assumptions that can too easily ruin a life. Marcus's journey through the trial became a living lesson in civic engagement and legal literacy. His story underscored that while the system may often appear inflexible and biased, it is not beyond challenge. Through careful study, determination, and the willingness to question established norms, even those who seem powerless can expose the cracks in an unjust system. His experience served as a beacon of hope and a call to action, urging others to learn, question, and, when necessary, stand up for their own rights. In that charged environment, with every word weighed and every fact scrutinized, the case against Marcus lost its seemingly unassailable foundation. The courtroom, once a stage set by preconceptions, gradually transformed into a platform for real dialogue about fairness, accountability, and the importance of evidence. Marcus's passionate defense and unwavering commitment to truth resonated deeply with everyone present, laying bare the fundamental flaws in a system quick to judge based on appearances alone. Each moment in the trial was a testament to the enduring power of education and personal conviction. Marcus's careful navigation of legal principles, his challenge to unreliable evidence, and his fearless confrontation of authority not only highlighted the importance of accuracy in the pursuit of justice but also reinforced a broader positive message, that every person deserves to be heard and to have the truth considered on its own merits. This unfolding drama in the courtroom was not merely about overturning a wrongful charge. It was about restoring faith in a system that, at times, can become too easily tainted by bias. Marcus's brave stance and articulate defense demonstrated that when individuals take the time to understand their rights and the law, they can become formidable advocates for change. His story is a powerful reminder that the fight for justice is ongoing and that informed, courageous voices can transform even the most daunting challenges into opportunities for progress. By the time the court reached its pivotal moment of deliberation, the once dominant narrative had been irrevocably altered. The weight of Marcus's evidence, the clear discrepancies, and the undeniable personal testimony had shifted the entire tone of the proceedings. In every carefully chosen word and every deliberate gesture, Marcus communicated that truth, when pursued relentlessly, can dismantle even the strongest constructs of assumed guilt. In the wake of that unforgettable trial, the courtroom's atmosphere shifted from tension to tentative hope. As the gavel came down and the judge declared Marcus not guilty, the entire room seemed to exhale a long-held breath of relief. His victory wasn't just personal. It was a beacon of change, shining a light on a system that all too often presumes guilt without thorough scrutiny. Marcus's fearless stand against the weight of wrongful assumptions had sent shockwaves through the community. His insistence on examining every detail, from the height discrepancy on the security footage to the officer's questionable record, had forced everyone to re-examine the true meaning of justice. That day, the truth prevailed not through grand gestures but through a determined search for facts, a commitment to fairness, and an unwavering belief that every voice deserves to be heard. Outside the courthouse, as the afternoon light warmed the steps of the building, reporters swarmed and voices rose in admiration. Yet amidst the chaos of flashing cameras and probing questions, Marcus's simple yet powerful words resonated. He had not just fought for his freedom, but for all those who had ever been silenced by a flawed system. His message was clear. True justice is achieved when we question, learn, and stand up for what is right. In that transformative moment, the community was reminded that each of us has the power to challenge the status quo. Marcus's journey is a call to action for every young person and every citizen who believes that fairness and truth must guide our legal system. His determination demonstrated that the courage to seek the truth can inspire change far beyond a single courtroom. If Marcus's story has touched you and ignited a spark within, share it with others. Let his fight for justice remind us all that every act of courage, every informed question, and every step toward truth makes a difference. Your voice matters in this ongoing conversation about accountability and fairness. We invite you to like this video, share it with your friends and family, and leave a comment below with your thoughts on how we can all contribute to a more just society. And if you believe in the power of a single honest voice to bring about change, please subscribe to our channel, Acts of Kindness Stories New, as we work together toward a milestone of 10,000 subscribers. Every new subscriber is a reminder that hope and resilience can triumph over adversity. Together, let's continue to shine a light on stories that inspire, educate, and empower. Thank you for watching, and remember, the journey for justice is one we take together.